Every morning for 10 years, a gray horse climbed the same Montana hillside and stood perfectly still, watching the highway below with the kind of hope that breaks your heart. What he was waiting for would change everything you believe about love, loyalty, and promises that transcend death itself. The locals called him Ghost, though there was nothing ghostly about the dappled stallion who appeared each sunrise on the hill overlooking Highway 287. Jim Patterson, whose ranch bordered the slope, first spotted him on September 15, 2014. "Strangest thing I'd ever seen," Jim would later recall. "Wild horse just standing there. Not grazing, not moving. Just waiting." But Ghost wasn't like other Mustangs. While wild horses avoid human areas, he deliberately chose this spot because it gave him a perfect view of every car that passed below. Hour after hour, he'd stand motionless, his intelligent dark eyes tracking each vehicle with an intensity that made your chest tighten. When cars slowed, his ears would prick forward, and he'd step closer to the road's edge, hope flickering across his weathered face. When they continued past, he'd settle back into his patient stance, never giving up his watch. The Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks Rangers tried everything to move him. "We were worried about accidents," admitted Ranger Sarah Chen. "Wild horses near highways mean trouble for everyone." But Ghost was too clever to be dangerous. He maintained a safe distance on his hillside perch, never descending to the asphalt itself. When rangers attempted to drive him away, he'd retreat temporarily, only to return within hours. After 6 months of failed attempts, they gave up. He wasn't hurting anyone, just standing there, day after day, clearly waiting for something that mattered more than freedom itself. Theories spread through the small community of wisdom, like wildfire. Some believed he was waiting for a lost mare. Others whispered he'd been abandoned by an owner and hoped for their return. The Romantics claimed he was mourning a Native American warrior from centuries past, bound by spiritual connection to keep eternal watch. But Ghost kept his secrets, maintaining his vigil through scorching summers that cracked the earth and brutal Montana winters that should have killed him. His presence wore a clear trail from the wilderness to his watching spot. The ground where he stood became packed hard, grass unable to grow under the constant pressure of his hooves. Even the rocks seemed to mold themselves to accommodate his daily ritual. By 2019, 5 years into his vigil, Ghost had aged visibly. His dappled coat showed more white, his back wasn't quite as straight, but his routine never wavered. Sunrise arrival, sunset departure, watching, waiting, hoping with a devotion that defied explanation. "He's looking for someone," Jim Patterson told his wife one evening, watching Ghost's silhouette against the fading light. "Someone who means everything to him. And he's not giving up." If only they knew how right he was. If only they understood that the truth would reveal a love so pure, so unbreakable, that it would redefine everything they thought they knew about the bonds between hearts. To understand Ghost's devotion, we must travel back 16 years, to 2004, when he wasn't Ghost at all. He was Storm, a 2-year-old Mustang colt with a coat like silver clouds, captured during a Bureau of Land Management roundup in the Pryor Mountains. His striking beauty and calm intelligence made him perfect for adoption, too perfect to remain wild. The adoption event in Billings should have been routine. Families came to choose young horses, hoping to train them for riding or ranch work. Storm stood out immediately, not just for his dappled coat, but for the thoughtful way he observed everything around him. While other horses panicked in the holding pens, he watched with quiet dignity, as if he understood something the others didn't. 8-year-old Lily Chen was small for her age, with long black hair and a smile that could light up the darkest room. But beneath that radiant exterior, her heart was failing. Born with a congenital defect, she'd spent more time in hospitals than playgrounds. Yet horses remained her passion. Her bedroom walls covered with pictures, her shelves lined with model horses. She wasn't supposed to be there. Her mother Anna would later recall tears forming at the memory. The cardiologist said no strenuous activities, certainly nothing involving large animals. But Lily begged just to look, Mama, just to see them. When Lily approached Storm's pen, something electric passed between them. The young stallion walked directly to the fence where she stood, lowering his magnificent head to her level. Lily reached through the rails, her small hand touching his velvet muzzle. Storm closed his eyes and sighed deeply, as if he'd been holding his breath his whole life and could finally exhale. He chose her, remembered BLM Wrangler Tom Martinez. I've seen a lot of adoptions, but never anything like that. That horse looked at that little girl like she was his whole world. Despite the financial strain and Lily's health issues, Anna couldn't deny her daughter this connection. They adopted Storm, renaming him at Lily's insistence. His name is Dancer, she announced, with 8-year-old certainty, because he makes my heart dance. The Chen family lived on a small property outside Wisdom, right off Highway 287. They fenced 2 acres for Dancer, visible from the road where cars passed daily. Every afternoon after school, regardless of how weak she felt, Lily would spend hours with her horse. She couldn't ride him. Her heart wouldn't allow such exertion, but she'd groom him, talk to him, read him stories from her favorite books. That horse was more careful with her than any human, Anna remembered. He'd lower himself so she could reach his back, stand still for hours while she braided his mane, follow her around like a gentle giant. But it was more than careful, it was love. Pure, uncomplicated, life-changing love. For 4 precious years, Lily and Dancer created their own world of wonder. The hillside overlooking their property became their sacred place, where they'd sit together watching Montana sunsets paint the sky in brilliant colors. Lily would lean against Dancer's strong shoulder while he grazed contentedly, never moving far from her side. She told him everything. Her fears about surgery, her dreams of getting better, her hope that someday she could ride him properly. I swear that horse understood every word, Anna remembered. He'd nuzzle her gently when she struggled to breathe, position himself as a windbreak when she needed to rest. They weren't just girl and horse, they were souls who recognized each other. Neighbors grew accustomed to seeing them silhouetted against the evening sky, the fragile girl and her devoted horse. They became a symbol of hope in their small community. If Lily could fight her battles with such grace, if a wild horse could love so gently, anything seemed possible. But by the summer of 2008, Lily's condition worsened dramatically. The heart that had struggled valiantly for 12 years was failing faster than doctors had feared. Emergency surgery was scheduled at Seattle Children's Hospital, a desperate attempt to buy more time for a girl who had already defied every medical prediction. The night before leaving for Seattle, Lily insisted on saying goodbye to Dancer. Despite her weakness, she walked slowly to the pasture, Anna hovering anxiously nearby. Dancer met them at the gate, his usual enthusiasm dampened. He always knew when Lily was suffering. "I need to tell him," Lily whispered to her mother, her voice barely audible. "He needs to understand why I'm leaving." Anna watched through tears as her daughter wrapped thin arms around Dancer's neck, whispering secrets in his ear. The horse stood perfectly still, his great head lowered to her level, occasionally touching his muzzle to her cheek as if kissing away tears. "I heard part of what she told him," Anna later shared, her voice breaking. "She promised she'd come back, said wait for me on our hill, Dancer, watch for our car. I'll be in the back seat, probably sleeping, but I'll wake up when I see you. Just wait for me, okay? Promise you'll wait." Dancer responded by placing his head over Lily's shoulder, pulling her into an embrace that seemed to last forever. They stood that way in the fading light, the horse trying to memorize her scent, her feel, her presence. When Lily finally stepped back, Dancer touched his nose to her hand one last time, a gentle seal on a sacred promise. The next morning, as the Chen's car pulled onto Highway 287, Dancer was already on the hillside. Lily, weak but determined, waved from the back seat. "See, Mama, he's watching. He'll be there when we come home." But Lily never made it home. The surgery revealed damage worse than anyone imagined. Despite the medical team's heroic efforts, her brave heart finally gave out on August 3, 2008. She died still believing she'd return to Dancer. Anna couldn't bear to return home immediately. Family members handled the funeral arrangements, while she remained in Seattle, paralyzed by grief. It was 3 weeks before she could face the journey back to Montana, and another week before she could bring herself to look at the empty pasture. Dancer was gone. The gate remained closed, but he had jumped it, something he'd never done before. Anna found hoof prints leading up the hill, and there he was, standing exactly where he and Lily used to watch sunsets together, his eyes fixed on Highway 287. Anna tried everything to coax him down. She brought his favorite treats, called his name, even played recordings of Lily's voice. Dancer would look at her with recognition, but wouldn't abandon his post. As sunset approached, he'd return to the pasture to eat and drink, but every sunrise found him back on the hill. He was keeping his promise, Anna realized with a broken heart. Lily told him to wait and watch for the car, so that's exactly what he was doing. Unable to afford Dancer's care without Lily, Anna tried to find him a new home, but he jumped every fence, escaped every stable, always returning to his hillside vigil. In desperation and overwhelming grief, she left the gate open. "I thought he'd run back to the wild," she admitted years later. "Maybe find a herd and forget about us." Instead, he stayed, right there on that hill, free to leave but choosing to wait. Anna moved away 3 months later, the memories too painful to bear. She heard through local reports that Dancer remained, his daily vigil becoming part of Wisdom's landscape. 16 years passed. Ghost, as the locals called him, became a legend, a symbol of loyalty that touched hearts worldwide. But only Anna knew the tragic truth behind his devotion. From Seattle, where she'd relocated, she followed reports of him through social media, each photo of him on that hillside both a comfort and a knife to her heart. In March 2024, something stirred in Anna's soul. Her therapist suggested confronting old grief might help her finally heal. She hadn't expected Ghost to still be waiting. Surely after 16 years he'd have given up or passed on. But there he was in recent photos, grayer and slower but maintaining his faithful watch. Anna returned to Montana and revealed the truth to Ranger Sarah Chen. The legend of Ghost suddenly had context, and the reality was more heartbreaking than any theory. Word spread quickly through the community. The mysterious horse wasn't waiting for just anyone. He was keeping a promise to a 12-year-old girl who would never come home. The revelation sparked an extraordinary response. The entire town of Wisdom mobilized around a singular purpose, helping Dancer keep his sacred promise. They built a gentle path up his hill, provided shelter that wouldn't obstruct his view, and created a support system worthy of his devotion. But most remarkably, the local children organized Dancer's helpers, taking shifts to help him watch the highway. "We know she's in heaven," explained 10-year-old Marcus Webb Jr., "but maybe Dancer doesn't understand heaven, so we help him look." On September 15, 2024, exactly 10 years after his vigil began, Dancer's aged body finally betrayed his willing spirit. The community carried him up his beloved hill one last time. As the sun began to set, painting the Montana sky in brilliant colors, something extraordinary happened. Dancer lifted his head with sudden alertness, his clouded eyes seeming to clear. He saw something beyond the highway that made him struggle to his feet, taking steps toward a reunion only he could see. With a deep sigh of absolute contentment, he lay down gently, his eyes remaining open, focused on something beautiful beyond the sunset. At 6:47 p.m., as the sun touched the horizon, Dancer's faithful heart finally stopped. He had kept his promise, and in the end, perhaps in the only way that truly mattered, Lily had come for him. They buried Dancer on his hill, facing the highway he'd watched so faithfully. His story lives on, proving that some loves transcend time, death, and logic itself. Because real love doesn't understand impossibility. It only knows faith, patience, and promises that echo through eternity.